much for stopping by. So, my name is Rutendo, and this is my very, very first episode of this series that I am doing at the moment. And I've decided to title this episode Dealing with the Disappointment of Not Realizing Your Dream. And the reason why I actually created this entire podcast for me is because there are a lot of things that I've been through that I realized that a lot of people can also relate to, especially being a young adult, navigating the world, as well as being a Christian at that. So my whole entire vision for this podcast was to look at how my personal journey can also be seen in a way of integrating faith and also integrating my studies in psychology. So before we actually jump into today's topic, I wanted to do a little bit of a brief introduction into who is Rutendo. So the podcast is named Thinking Out Loud with Ru. And I want you to know a little bit about me. So my name is Rutendo Mahoa, and I have a honors degree in psychology. And in my undergrad, I did psychology as well as philosophy. So that's basically my study history, but I also have a master's degree in community mental health promotion. So it's a social science degree. And I have been working towards being a registered psychologist. It's taking a little bit longer than I thought, but it's something that I'm still working on. And I know that for people listening, it might not be working towards a master's in psychology or a PhD in psychology, depending on where you're currently located. But we are all faced with sometimes the disappointment of not reaching your goals. And it's something that we have to talk about because as young people, we are told to dream, that you can have anything that you put your mind to it. And it's something that we have to think about. We always tell people that anything that you dream up, you can have. In my mind, I'm just like, really? Can I have anything that I dream of? Because the actual truth is that sometimes it may take a little bit longer than you anticipated to get to the goal that you had in mind. And sometimes you may need to reroute entirely in order to still realize your dreams in a different way. So I have here a notebook. So if you see me looking down, it's just me looking at my notes because this is the very first. And I just wanted it to be a little bit more structured. So like I said before, I titled this Dealing with the Disappointment of Not Yet Realizing Your Dreams. And one of the things that I really thought about is that idea of you can be anything that you want to be, because it's said to us quite a lot, and it's something that is emphasized even in moments where we're just children, that whatever you put your mind to, you can be, you can achieve. But sometimes you dream and you literally develop a plan, but it doesn't always work out in the way that we anticipated. So one of the things that I thought about immediately was the glass half full analogy, because whenever we put our minds to a dream, right, we start being the optimistic human beings that we should be, and we start thinking that, no, I'm going to achieve this goal. But sometimes we're not always as optimistic as we want to be. Sometimes we are genuinely pessimistic, and we tend to lean on the idea of the glass being rather half empty. And sometimes because it's half empty, and right now the heat is hitting, so you start to think that that water is getting less and less by the minute. Okay, that got dark a little bit. But I do think that it's important for us to look at what happens when we don't realize our dreams in the time that we actually dreamt that the dream would come to pass. And it's important that we look at how to bounce back when there have been setbacks. So I wanted to maybe take you through some of the things that I've been personally doing in order to bounce back from setbacks. Like I mentioned before, one of the things that I genuinely dreamt of is that by now, and currently I am 29 years old, I finished my honors degree when I was, how old was I? 29, 2017. Okay, my math is not mathing at the moment, but that's when I finished my honors degree. So it's been now 7 years, and I still do not have a registration in psychology. And most of the times, this means that the jobs that you tend to get don't nearly pay as much as a person who does have a registration. And it also means that the opportunities are very limited. So I'm sitting here being like, I've done a lot of things in order to equip myself to get to that point where, in terms of interviews, I'm able to stand out in a crowd. But it feels like it's not enough. And again, that disappointment in sitting in it and how to deal with that. And the first thing that I want to highlight here is that it's important to acknowledge your feelings, the disappointment. It is very likely that if something that you dreamt up does not happen in the time that you hoped it would happen, that you're going to be disappointed. And it's very normal to be disappointed in that scenario, because at the end of the day, it's something that you have been working towards. You probably initiated a plan in order to make sure that what you wanted to see at the end of the day, you're able to see. So it's important to actually acknowledge your emotions. That right now I'm feeling kind of bummed out and I'm sad because of the disappointment of not being in that space that I wanted to be. So that's the first thing that you need to do. And then the second thing that you need to do is to reflect on the reasons why maybe it didn't work out the way that you hoped to. And it's important to look at, first of all, were my expectations realistic? Was it realistic, the timeline that I set for myself, or realistic in terms of the plan that I actually put together? Because sometimes it may mean that you need to look for ways to be more experienced in the avenue that you're hoping to develop. And the second thing is where there may be unforeseen obstacles that you didn't maybe put into your plan initially. And this helps you in terms of getting to the point of being able to reroute. Because if you're going to get there, it means that you need to start where you're at. And another thing is looking at, was the plan that I initiated effective? Was it an effective plan? Or how can I better the plan that I initially had? And the third thing that I have here is that whenever we are on a journey to working towards the dreams and the goals that we have for ourselves, and they don't work out, it's important to be kind to yourself. And I really want to emphasize this point. And the reason being is that as human beings, we tend to have something called negative thinking, right? And this happens whenever we're hoping for something and it genuinely doesn't happen, or whenever we're just in a space where our emotional and mental health is not in a space that we want it to be. So we get those moments of negative patterns of thought. And it's very important that in order to stop that, you are kind to yourself. Catch yourself in moments where you have that negative self-talk, to say that, no, you didn't make it because of 1, 2, 3 reasons. Because sometimes it has nothing to do with you. Sometimes it may be that there might be more people who are qualified for that role that you were applying for. Or in the same way that you're fighting for your dream, sometimes it's the same dream that someone else is fighting for. And maybe the plan that they initiated had a little bit more steps or a little bit more backup of plans A, B, C, D, and F, all the way to Z, than yours might have been. Because it's also important for us to remember that we're not the only people who are working hard. other people are also working hard in order to achieve their goals. And sometimes those people may stand out, and we may need to look at other things that we can do in order to make our CVs stand out, in order to make ourselves look a little and function a little bit better in the roles that we want to be in. So be very kind to yourself. Practice that self-compassion so that at least you are not another person who's standing in line to put you down, because the world is already hard enough as it is, and it's very important that you start to be a little bit kinder to you. And the fourth thing that I have here is that it's important for you to surround yourself with good people. So this is not only family, but this is also sometimes friends, sometimes colleagues, people who are able to feed your spirit in a positive way. Because sometimes there are moments where we're trying to practice self-compassion or trying to practice positive self-talk, but we're genuinely struggling, and we may need to hit up that sister or call that friend who's able to say that, listen, I've seen you put in the work, or who's able to say that you're called to be in the position that you're trying to apply for, so that in the moments that you're struggling with the strength and the motivation and the endurance to keep on moving forward, someone else is able to speak into your spirit so that you're able to get that strength again. Because we're not always going to be the people who are speaking, who are having the energy to keep on moving forward in a positive way. But sometimes we need to have positive people in our lives who are able to speak that positivity that I'm speaking about. And the fifth thing that I have here is that it's important to engage in activities that boost your dopamine. And trust me, this is the place that I've been living on. Because one thing about chasing a dream is that sometimes it can be very demotivating. And sometimes you can feel like I'm putting in all this work and I'm not seeing anything in terms of results. I'm not seeing anything tangible. And sometimes you just need to be in a space where you think about, what is my routine looking like on a day-to-day basis? Because trust me, when you're chasing something that you haven't seen the result of yet, it's very easy for us to fall into a place of depression or into a place of always struggling with anxiety. So in order to avoid that, it's very important that you're looking at, on a day-to-day basis, how am I taking care of my body? How am I taking care of my mental health? And it starts with the small activities, the day-to-day activities that you have. And one of the things that I've been very religious about is walking, for example. And it's something that my sister has joined in on, and it's been really helping in terms of just clearing my mind and just arranging and organizing my thoughts. And it's a place where I'm able to just be present and able to say that, okay, so how can I plan a little bit better? How can I go into this year, which is 2025, in a different way that I did before, so that I can be on that journey of reaching the goal that I have. And another thing that I've been doing is journaling and just looking at things that I can be grateful for in the moment. Because sometimes, even though things are not working out in the way that we want them to, it doesn't mean that there are things that are not working out entirely. Because that's how our thoughts work sometimes. When something is not working the way that we hoped for it to work, we start thinking that everything is not working. So it's that black and white thinking of, if something is not going right, then everything is going wrong. But sometimes we need to stop those negative patterns of thought by interrupting it somehow and looking at, okay, so maybe in terms of my career, it's not yet where I want it to be. But is there something that currently is happening in my life that I can be grateful for, that I can celebrate? Because sometimes that's exactly what we need in order to be in a place of just feeling like life is worth living. So it's something that I genuinely encourage, because it's been a lifesaver for me. And that's to say the least, because I am a person who struggles with my mind just going all over the place, where sometimes the thoughts can get dark. So sometimes it's important for us to have ways of bringing us back into the present moment so that we're not going to those places where our thoughts only get darker. Because sometimes how the mind works is that when you think of one dark thought, you think of another, and then it keeps on going, and eventually you start to see your mind spiraling. And sometimes we need to catch ourselves before it gets to that point. And the sixth thing that I have here is that it's important for you to take whatever lessons that you learned from this is a learning experience. If something doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that it will never work out. It just means that we may need to reroute, like I said before, and plan again. Go back to the drawing board so that at least we're able to get to that point of saying that, okay, plan A didn't work. What can I change about that plan so that it can give me plan B, so that it can be now something actionable that I can start doing, so that at least you can still get back on the road of working towards your dream. And the final thing, just to tie it all together, get back in the game. It's very important to get back in the game because you owe it to yourself to be the person who is realizing whatever you dreamt about all those years or all those months. Doesn't always have to be years, but it's important that you get to that place where you start realizing your dreams because you are worth fighting for. So even though I initially titled this dealing with the disappointment of not realizing your dream, I want you to maybe rephrase that a little bit for yourself and say dealing with the disappointment of not yet realizing your dream, because who knows, maybe somewhere down the line you are able to be exactly what you hoped for. But again, like I said, you owe it to yourself to be the person who's fighting for you, because sometimes we don't fight hard enough. The same way that we fight for relationships, if it's not working out, we owe it to ourselves to be able to fight for us, because you are worth it. So bye for now. This is the first episode. Join us again next week for the second one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye for now.